Let's look at some of our chemical foundations in biochemistry, as well as the four major groups of biochemicals. As you know, organic chemistry is the study of compounds of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and their derivatives, and that certainly relates to biomolecules. Living cells are composed of carbon compounds, so we can use organic chemistry to understand them. I'd like to point out, though, that organic chemistry is a broader subject than the portion that applies to biochemistry. This may be a comforting fact to you if organic chemistry wasn't your favorite subject. As a matter of fact, only a relatively small subset of the periodic table relates to living systems. Hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen being the most abundant and pictured here in the darkest shade of orange. In the past, there was a common belief in the thought of vital forces. That is, there were compounds produced in and unique to living systems. Friedrich Wohler conducted an experiment in 1828 that served to disprove that theory. He used standard chemical methods to convert ammonium cyanate to the biological compound urea. So then, the molecules we find in living cells are not so very different than what we can make in the lab. Let's now consider the four major types of biological molecules. First, we have amino acids, and they all share a common structure. There's a central carbon atom bonded to a carboxyl group, an amino group, a hydrogen, and the R group or side chain. The ball and stick formula on the right gives a better idea of how this molecule looks in three-dimensional space. Next we have lipids, whose primary characteristic is that of being mostly water insoluble. As you can see from the example of palmitate shown here, they most often have long hydrocarbon chains, or they may resemble cholesterol with its fused ring structure. Nucleotides are the basic unit of the hereditary materials DNA and RNA. However, members of this group perform other functions, such as adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, often referred to as the energy currency of the cell. As you can see, a nucleotide contains three different component parts: a 5-carbon sugar, a nitrogenous base, and one or more phosphate groups. Lastly, carbohydrates are composed primarily of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and have the general formula CH2O sub N, where N is at least 3. You can see from the formula the derivation of the name, hydrates of carbon. The simplest of this group are monosaccharides or sugars, and of these, glucose is by far the most common. We will look at each of these groups in greater detail as we proceed, and pretty much in the order presented here.